on? I'm Jeff Whelan, the host of the WB Download, and I want to invite you and welcome you to our podcast. My brother and I own and operate Whelan Builders. It's a custom home building company here in Southwest Ohio. The WB Download mostly focuses on interviewing folks associated with custom building. We stray now and then to interview people who I think are interesting and to break up the monotony of the same old podcast. I also like to highlight things that are going on in my everyday life along with our businesses. I started this podcast to help people understand the custom builder world, but to also give people a chance to hear what others have to say and highlight their expertise and experiences in life. We drop on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month with a new topic and or guest each time. I hope you join us here on the WB Download and enjoy listening and hearing stories of people in and out of the custom builder world. Welcome to the WB Download. Hello again, everybody. Once again, here we are, Tuesday, June 9th, 2026. I'm Jeff Whelan here on the WB Download. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. I hope everybody's enjoying listening to this so far this year. We are just about right now halfway through the year. Here we are. I can't believe how fast time goes because one of the things I was going to talk about today is our kids just got out of school last week, so now they're busy, and like I said last year, it doesn't make a difference when they get out of school. They're still doing something every single day, and Raina is cheering, and it seems like she's busy with that, still up at 6 o'clock in the morning every day and having to get going. Cody's been working on the farm and working for us. And, we had to get ready for the fair. We are still getting ready for the fair. That'll be a big lead up here in the middle of July. So there's tons of things that need to happen before that, and they just keep on going. But I'm so proud of my kids. I don't know where they get this from. I know that they get it from their mom. They both graduated with finished the year up with straight A's. They haven't graduated yet. Straight A's, 12 and 14. So next year they're both going to switch schools. Cody will be a freshman in high school next year, and Raina will jump up to the junior high next year, going into 7th grade. So I'm proud of these guys. They work hard, and it doesn't come without having to every once in a while sit them down and explain to them why they've been dealt a dirty hand by living on a farm, because they were like, man, why can't we just live in a neighborhood and enjoy life? And so they still work hard, but every once in a while we have to back up and say, here's why we're doing it. And why we're doing it is I want them to be well-rounded people. I want them to know what it's like to work hard. I want them to know what it's like to have that discipline and taking care of other things besides themselves. And they do a great job at it. My whole family does, and I'm proud of everybody that does it. So one thing I forgot to mention last time when we were talking about birthdays is my good friend Ryan Grease's birthday was last May, in May during the last episode. And another one of my best friends that I've had since we were, I think, in the 7th grade. And just been best friends ever since then. And so it's just so meaningful to have those people where we just talk all the time, and catch up, and still after all these years. So happy birthday, old buddy. And very special birthday here this week is my dad's birthday. And he will be, I believe, 82 years old and still kicking and still going. One of the things I get a kick out of in my life is when people walk up to me and they go, hey, and I say, hey, how's it going? And they go, how's your dad doing? And they don't give a shit about me. And just yesterday I saw a guy and I walked up and I said, hey, how's it going? Yeah, I ain't seen you in a long time. He goes, how's your brother doing? I said, he's doing good too. Yeah. Thanks for asking. He's doing good. Nobody cares about Jeff. Everybody cares about my dad and my brother. But happy birthday to my dad. And I know it's going to be an enjoyable day. Always is. And we're glad you're with us, buddy. And then, I was just going to talk about, we started this job out in Warren County. And we'll have some video on social media. And I get excited about it because when we do 10-foot walls, when we do some hillside district stuff, when we do a couple other things that require extra structural engineering and things, when you see the footers and the walls going in on these jobs, it's amazing. It looks like a bridge formed with all this steel that we're putting into it, and how precise everything has to be, and how much work goes into putting these things together. And so check out our social media and see this footer going in. It's not anything out of the norm for us, but we talk about it with the guys, and I said, man, a lot of people say custom builder, and I don't think they understand what it means to do that until you see something like this going on, and they have to understand all these moving parts. I'm not putting myself on I am putting myself on a pedestal, but I'm just saying there's a lot of people out there, who think they can do it, but they can't do it. There's a lot of people out there who imitate what we do, and it's embarrassing for them because they suck at it, and we are still a lot better than that. Just don't, as a custom builder, we're the originators. We're not copiers, and I've seen a lot of people in the last couple weeks copying some things, and even whether we're doing on social media, whether we're doing out in the neighborhood, and I just look at them and I'm like, I don't know, should I be flattered or should I be, what should I be? Anyway, I call them hush puppy builders. One of the things that we got a guy named Trent Morris that's going to be on the show today, and Trent is one of the big dogs over at A1 Mechanical. He's our heating and air conditioning contractor, and Trent is used to own his own heating and air conditioning company before he got bought out by this company, and you're going to hear what gets me fired up and gets me excited. I want all of the people who do things with Whelen Builders to be complete nerds about what they do, and they just got to geek out on it. They got to love it. They got to care about it, and you're going to hear that passion in Trent's voice today. You're going to hear the specifics of things that he knows, the things he concentrates on, the things he instills into his company to do just a great job. And I've been having conversations with customers here lately, and I say, man, the garage space and the heating and air conditioning are two of the most underrated things that people don't pay attention to in building houses. And it's one of the things that people talk to us all the time about is the house that they live in now. They're always hot. They're always cold. The second floor is just 90 degrees when it should be 70. Very important. So it's you can, if you're another builder, if you're a hush puppy builder, if you don't know what a hush puppy builder is, grab me sometime and I'll tell you. If you're going to talk about, you use these people, but you don't know what they're doing, and you listen to what Trent's doing here, and it's part of what we want them to do. It's fantastic. So I loved it. I was, when we got done with this interview, I was smiling ear to ear, and I was like, this is what it's all about. So I'm pretty excited to have him on the show today, and I'm excited for what you guys have to listen to. But we're leading up to our county fair, and so we've got a bunch of stuff going. So Cody and Raina have their steers that they've been showing all year long. We've got two of the heifers. They're now, they're bred, so they're going to have babies this year or next year. I'm sorry. But two of them, we were at the fair last year, so we're going to show them again. And then we have what these feeder calves. So these guys were born back in January. You guys heard me talking about them when they were born. We were sleeping in the barn while they were born. And now we brought them up to this point, and then we've got multiple kids who are going to be taking different feeder calves to show them at the show. This is really tough because they're still on their mom. They go through a lot of this baby stuff. That stresses them out a lot, and then we're also halter braking them, washing them, and then all of a sudden we're going to trailer them off to the county fair for 10 days and hang out up there and then bring them back home. So a lot of stuff going on there. It's the kids are really working hard trying to get these things ready to go up to the fair. Little update on Homerama. We had with so much rain here, and our humidity and moisture content inside the house has to be perfect, and perfect meaning between 30 and 50%. And when it's too high, we struggle getting to the point where we can install hardwood and we can install inside trim, because if it's too high or if it's too low, then it just screws up everything that goes on inside that house. So we've been at a stall point here for a little bit, waiting on this moisture to drop, which it is now. And we are installing hardwood and inside trim this week. Our cabinets come this week. The outside's looking really great. Trent was able to get the septic system in last week, and we are laying some brick on the porches, and we're doing some other cool things on the outside, getting those things ready to get wrapped up. So things are still moving. It's just not moving at the pace I wanted to, and I think it's going to super stress us out towards the end when we're trying to wrap this thing up, working, just way it goes. We're just working 10 times harder than what we should be trying to wrap this thing up at the end because of the delays that we've had on other things that Mother Nature caused. Weather and winning, Cincinnati Reds philosophy and Whelen Builders philosophy, which doesn't work out so well for the Cincinnati Reds. But anyway, so today's guest is Trent Morris from A1 Mechanical. Our guest the next time on this show is what we call Badass Builders. And this is going to be a combination of my good friend Dan Geis from Golden, Colorado. And it's going to be Don Weiler from Bloomington, Indiana, and it's going to be Adam Helke from I guess we call it Quad Cities, Davenport. He's from Iowa, and all three of these cats have been on this show before, and they're going to be on this show the next time we come around here, and we're going to talk amongst the four of us about the building industry, the trends that are going on, different things that we're paying attention to. We're going to talk about the Builder 20 group. We're going to talk about what it means to have a peer group. We're going to talk about a number of different things, and we're going to talk about how we stay in touch outside of the group, and just what, how everybody's always surprised of how builders hang out and talk with each other, and have gotten friendly with each other, and we're going to talk about that too. So that's going to be fun. But without further ado, let's bring in our man Trent Morris from A1 Mechanical here on the WB Download. Everybody, I hope you guys enjoy this and you feel a little bit more insight with what's going on with your heating and air conditioning and what we do to pay attention to it. Trent Morris. Hey, everybody, as I said, today on the show, we have Trent Morris from A1 Mechanical Systems. They're out of Dayton, Ohio, and they are our heating and air conditioning contractor that we use. Welcome to the show, Trent.
Thank you, sir.
How's it going today?
Good.
Yeah?
Good.
All right.
First time doing this. Hopefully I make it through well.
Yeah, you'll be fine. Trust me. I'm not going to beat you up, and you're going to make it through just fine. Everybody gets so nervous when they come in here to do this, and I'm like, man, it's just a conversation. Let's chill and have some fun. If you get so nervous, we got some bourbon up here somewhere on the wall, and I probably have some Bud Lights in the refrigerator for you. But I've always been particular about these heating and air conditioning systems, probably more so because of when we were building neighborhood houses. It seemed like it's like, all right, a ranch gets this system and a two-story gets this system. They were all pretty much close to the same. And it didn't seem like it was well thought out. And now with these custom houses, it's crazy thought out. I mean, it's like a commercial building. So it's super important. And I think it could be one of the most, not one of the most, but underrated thought when it comes into the house. What do you think?
I think it's the most important thing on a house because you're spending all this money on this new home. And if you're not comfortable, you don't love that new home.
That's right. And I think that we have this conversation a lot about this stuff because we had our energy guy on here, energy rating guy, Brad, a couple weeks ago. And I talk to people about this all the time. They get super excited about countertops and paint colors and tile. And people, I think that for the most part, when you walk into the front door of our office and you're thinking about building a house, you would have an expectation that we're going to do certain things. For Wheeling Builders, I hope you have that expectation, but you can't have that expectation with every builder. So when it comes to the stuff like this, like the heating and air conditioning, they're like, yeah, our house is going to get hot and it's going to get cold, and that's what we wanted to do. But what you would refer to it as indoor air quality, is that right?
Yeah, the indoor air quality has a lot to do with it. So when we design these houses, there's a lot more that goes into it besides just picking the equipment. The equipment's actually the last thing we decide on when designing a house. It starts with the coordination between you and I, the architect, the homeowners. We really like the homeowners to be involved, but there is a lot that goes into designing this. Every house I design is designed for comfort, not efficiency. The efficiency comes with the comfort. If it's designed properly, it's performing properly.
And so let's talk about what equipment means and what design means. So design would mean, you tell me what design means.
So the design starts with you sending us a blueprint of the house, us taking everything into account. The plot plan is one of the most important things because a house facing south is going to have a different load calculation, which is the sizing for our heating and cooling, than a house facing north. So that's one of the most important things. And we will go room by room. So it all starts before you pick the equipment. You've got to get a manual J load calculation on the house. That's the sizing of room by room, not just the square footage of the house. the primary bedroom, the great room, the butler's pantry. You know, the butler's pantry could have a refrigerator in it and, could have another stove with an exhaust hood.
Yeah.
That all goes into account in our calculations of sizing of how many cubic feet per minute of air we need in that specific room. But a west-facing primary bedroom is going to have a lot more cooling load in that room than a north-facing primary bedroom. So there are so many things that go into our calculations, but until we have the calculations, we can't choose the equipment. Until we talk to you and the homeowners to find out, what type of life they live, what the occupancy is in the house. That is a huge factor in the sizing of our equipment. Whether they have huge fish aquariums in the home.
Yeah.
Those are all things, and what room those things are in.
Yeah. We
don't know how to size the amount of airflow we need in that room without details.
Yeah. That takes expertise that you have.
Does.
But it also takes that formulated calculations that you're doing on a sheet for that load calculation through the manual J. So the manual J is the supply, right? Is that also the return, or is there a manual F for the return?
Both.
It is.
It
okay.
is. It actually is. So between supply and return, that's where we get something called static pressure. And we want our static to be balanced. That's the pressure incoming through the blower motor on the return side and the outgoing going on the supply side. You want to be about a 0.3 to a 0.6 on inches of water column when it comes to static pressure. So I always shoot for a 0.25 on return and a 0.25 on supply, which gives you a 0.5 total static.
So when you turn your furnace on, you turn your air conditioner on, and the supply is the lines that typically come through the floor. If it's a second floor system, maybe it's coming. They're shooting. They're bringing the cold air. They're bringing the hot air to that room and kicking it out into the room. The return air is typically on the wall, and this is the air where it's pulling it back, so it's cycling through. You can't just keep feeding the room air and not letting it, making it go somewhere or pulling it back, and so the return air takes it back down, and then it creates a cycle, right? I mean, almost not a cyclone, but a cycle.
That's an air exchange. That's exchanging the air in the room. If you're bringing air in, you got to take air out.
Yeah.
And it could be through pass-throughs. It could be through ducted returns. It can be through undercutting doors. On custom homes, we want to duct everything. You will see the pass-throughs and the undercut doors, things like that, more on your production homes. But yeah, you've got to exchange air here. I think the easiest way to explain it is if you have a bedroom and that door is closed, you can only pressurize it so much. You can only, if you're not pulling the air out, it pressurizes so much. And believe it or not, the air stops, even though you can feel it blowing out of the registers, it stops conditioning that room because you're not exchanging the air.
Yeah. Is that one of the, I've always felt like that, that single return air per floor, and then cutting the doors off short it originated with mobile homes, right? I mean,
it did.
And so I've always felt like that was the most inefficient system you could possibly do. You're saving money on the install for the purchase price, but you're just killing yourself on the maintenance and the performance of the machine, of the equipment over time.
Yeah. So generally when you see that, it's in your, 1,000, 1,200 square foot houses. They're more of a box. They're easier to condition. Things on your scale. You've really got to think outside of the box on those air exchanges and how to keep it comfortable from, 70 feet away on the left side of the house to the right side of the house.
Yeah. That's wicked. I mean, you think about the size of the houses and the runs and the push. So I want to jump in. I mean, we're getting too excited.
Yeah.
Let's jump in. Let's talk about where'd you grow up at? Where'd you come from? And what made you want to be a heating and air conditioning professional?
So grew up in Springfield, Ohio, the outskirts of Springfield, Kenton Ridge High School, big baseball school. A lot of pro athletes out of there on the baseball side.
Who came out of there?
Dave Burba, Dustin Hermanson, Greg Beals he was the coach for the Ohio State Buckeyes, the head coach. There's a couple players right now out of Kenton Ridge that are playing in the major leagues. It's a big baseball school.
I think Ohio's a diamond in the rough for professional baseball players.
It absolutely is.
People don't know that.
Yeah.
They don't know where they all come from.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So I graduated in 1989, and I was probably partying a little too much after graduation.
No such thing.
About a month and a half, 2 months after graduating, my mother came to the house. She had left work early, came to the house, told me to get up, get a shower, get dressed, and she was taking me for an interview. She had saw a bumper sticker on the back of a heating and air conditioning van that said now hiring. She called the number, got an interview set up, and I got the job in the warehouse, pulling materials that we needed, the registers, ductwork, and I did it for about 6 weeks. And one of the supervisors in the field, so when we pulled this material, we had to always initial it, and mine would say TM on it. So about 6 weeks into it, field supervisor came to me and said, "Hey, do you want to go out in the field and learn how to install?" And he said, all the guys out in the field said, every time you pick an order, it's precise. So we know that you care about what you're doing. And I said, yeah, that would be great. And he said, well, here's a list of tools, have them and be at this address tomorrow. And I was like, well, I don't have a job. I don't have any money. So had to go back to my mother to buy the tools. She took me to the supply house, bought all the tools. I had to pay her back. But that's where I started in the field and absolutely loved it. Had never thought of heating and air conditioning before that moment. And thanks to my mother, I've been doing it 37 years.
That is so wicked cool, man. I mean, I talk to so many people that have a story that things just kind of happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's awesome to hear that, how you arrived there, but it's cool that your mom is the one who initiated it and was pushing you and driving you to do that. So who took care of the warehouse if they drug you out to the field? Did you have somebody else who was working?
They got it taken care of.
Who cares?
Yep. They got it taken care of.
So, and you know, my experience when I was a kid is that a lot of those guys out in the field were pretty rough characters. When they got some new meat, they were going to tear them up.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So this dude grabs you and says, "Hey, you look like you care. You're performing like you care. Come out here." So were they nice to you, or did they give you a hard time?
No. When I started, there was a installer on the house next door and an installer a couple houses down on the left. And whenever I had a question, they came over and helped me out. So they were a big help. I think if I would have taken a lot of grief, I wouldn't have loved it as much, but they really helped me out.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Because I think that was one of the biggest downturns of our industry, no matter what it is, carpentry or plumbing or whatever. You get a bunch of smart ass guys out there that are just treating this dude like dirt, and then they don't want to come back.
Absolutely.
And they think they're giving him like they think they're making it like some kind of, you know, lesson to get into, you know, like
hazing.
Hazing is that's exactly the word I was looking for. And they think it's funny, but really they're deterring people away, and for somebody to take care of you like that. And man, that's pretty neat to be able to do that. But you know, you heard me, you probably heard me say this before, but I want people that work for us to care. I mean, you have to care. And that's the give a shit matters. And if you do not care about what you're doing, you're never going to be good at it. Nobody's ever going to respect what you're doing. And it's going to be horrible. But I also want you to be a complete nerd about what you're doing. Just diving in, always excited about it, just geeking out on every single thing that we do. And I think this is one of those points where you should be that person, you know? And so when I talk to people about our heating and air conditioning, I'm like, yeah, our heating and air conditioning guys are a bunch of nerds. They love this stuff. Yeah. I mean, you know, they've got pictures of this stuff hanging in their car, you know, and I think that's really important because people just don't realize. I mean, there's architects have a saying, and I've said this on the show a million times, is that you'll be comfortable in a room and you may not know why. It might be the ceiling height, it might be the paint color, it might be something. But chances are it's probably because you feel comfortable in there with the air quality that's in there. You know, I mean, is it cold or is it hot or is it good? Is it just right? Does it smell like crap or does it smell really good? You know, I mean, all those things come into play with that heating. So we were talking about the load, and we were talking about, the size of the house and all those things. And you had mentioned equipment versus what were we talking about as far as the equipment and the system?
Yeah, where it starts.
Equipment. So let's go back and talk about what does the equipment mean?
Well, the equipment's very important, especially on houses like yours, right? A lot of people, so when we start out on these houses for a lot of our builders, they start out on single stage equipment. And single stage is like you driving your car and pressing that gas pedal all the way to the floor. You're going to get from point A to point B really fast. Same thing happens in your house. So if your system is running, if your thermostat's set on 71 and it's 72 in your house and the cooling kicks on, but it's a mild day, 84 degrees outside, it's going to drop that degree really fast. And what you do, what you sacrifice in doing that is in cooling season, the whole key to cooling is dehumidification, extracting that moisture out of the home. You're unable to do that when you are getting from point A to point B really fast. You don't have time to extract that moisture and humidity out of the home. That's sacrificing comfort, right? It could be, and I know you felt houses like this, and everybody that hears, this podcast has had this before, that it could be 70 degrees in the home, but it's muggy, sticky because there's that moisture and humidity in the home.
Yeah.
The only way to overcome that in your spring season where you have more mild temperatures, but it's warm enough in the home that you need to cool, is by running longer cycles. So you at least need to look at something that's two-stage. Two-stage will start at 65% of the capacity, depending on the manufacturer. Some are at 70%, some at 65%. So 65% of that 100% is what the capacity you'll be running at. So it will run a longer cycle. You're able to extract that moisture and humidity out of the home. Fantastic. Same thing in heating season. You may have a 45-degree day, but you need a little bit of heating in there. And if you're at single stage, you are heating that house really fast, but you're unable to condition the outer perimeters of the home because you're not, that thermostat becomes content, but those outer corners of the house are still cold because you're not running a long enough cycle to condition the home. And then they have a system like I have in my house. It's called variable capacity. I have a modulating furnace that has hundreds of stages of heating. Fractions of a percentage, it will increase to keep that furnace running almost nonstop. That's for heating. In the cooling season, I start at 25% capacity. It has 75 stages of cooling. And, my wife's always thinking, oh gosh, the air conditioner's on and it's only 80 degrees out. But that's all the electric we're pulling as well. If we're running at 25% capacity, we're only pulling 25% of the electric. But I'm not worried about the efficiency. I am absolutely worried about the comfort. So no matter what, from spring to fall, that air conditioner on my home runs nonstop, but the comfort is unbelievable. I have 4,683 square feet, and from the left side of my house to the right, it's within a half a degree because of proper ductwork and great equipment.
And how does I had a million questions while you were talking, and I'm thinking about this stuff. So how does the insulation and windows and heat loss and gain and all of those things come into play And, I mean, you could do the perfect heating and air conditioning system and, they chinsed on the walls, the insulation, the windows and all that stuff. That would screw it up, wouldn't it?
Well, that changes our sizing.
Yeah.
That all goes. So we can only be as good as the details from the builder. So, if it says we have an R19 in the walls and an R49 in the attic, but then the insulators don't do their jobs, then our load is not going to be precise.
Yeah.
So, there's supervision that has to go on your side along with your subs, but our information and our sizing is only as good as the details we get.
Yeah.
But you were talking about windows and everything else. So on a big open floor plan, that's where the nerd of the HVAC side comes in, because we have to look at something, understand it, love what we do enough to say, hey, this great room has 18-foot ceilings and all this glass that faces west.
Yeah.
Right? So we're going to have a huge cooling load, but a really light heating load. So if we think that room alone needs to be zoned, we have to recommend that. I am huge at telling a builder when I get a print, yep, nope, we can't do that. We can't cut cost on this. These people have to be comfortable. And it's understanding the design of that house, the orientation, the glass, the solar gains.
Yeah.
And saying, hey, this has to be zoned. You don't say we recommend zoning. You say this has to be zoned.
Yeah. Let's think about the evolution of heating and cooling inside of a house.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it started out as a fireplace. And then if they had a second story, they cut holes in the floor. And then the rich people had a fireplace in just about every room.
Heat rises.
And then they'd poke holes in the wall and they'd started making windows. And then, and then it just becomes this system for heat. And it was electric, and then and tell me if I'm wrong, but the house that my grandparents had growing up, they had, I mean, we had heat in there. It was probably either the boiler or an oil or the baseboard heat,
Mm-hmm.
and then if God forbid we had a window air conditioner, and then the house I grew up in had all of it. I mean, it had a heat pump system, had air conditioning, and was great. So when you look at that like that, yeah, we've come miles and miles and miles up, from the beginning. But just from yesterday to today, you think about, like you're talking about single stage versus multiple stages, talking about all these different speeds and the thermostats. So some of the stuff that we're using, and we have the ability to use that in our houses. I mean, mm-hmm. I can see in neighborhood houses and those kind of things where the market's setting their price, so they are trying to do everything they can to keep prices minimal. Where they're just using basic, and that's as simple as it gets. And the customer probably has the option, I hope, to upgrade some things
mm-hmm.
in those houses. But ours, when people build our house, they expect it to be upgraded. I mean, you don't want to do all those things. Yeah. But more importantly for me, I expect you guys to say, hey, this is the way it's supposed to flow. This is the way it's supposed to be installed. This is where all this stuff is. This is maximum efficiency. This is all these different things. But then if somebody comes to us and says, we want Geo, we want a dual fuel, we've done some research, that's when you start changing what you're doing necessarily. So that's a big thing. So going back, you think about where the evolution of the system started. Who invented air conditioning? Was it Carrier?
It was.
Yeah, and so when was that? And I wonder who was like, man, I'm so tired of being hot.
Well, that was in the early 1900s, and the heating side was Lennox.
Okay,
so I don't know the exact date, but it was Charles Carrier, and 20s.
Yeah,
the 1920s. Not many people had it at the time because it was extremely expensive, I'm sure. But growing up for me, we didn't have air conditioning.
Yeah,
we had box fans.
Yeah,
so but my kids now, I catch them messing with thermostat all the time, and I tell them all the time, hey, I didn't even have it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think about how many cars were made and how many trucks were made without air conditioning. I mean, they were made with heat, but no air conditioning. So it's definitely a positive. It's a plus. I think about all of these things in terms of, not just, comfortability for people to be in their house, but for the materials and everything that we're using. We're using so many natural wood products, between our cabinetry and our flooring and all of our trim work and stuff, that we have to have your system fired up. And it's not ideal, but you have to have that thing fired up just right at the drywall stage and running. Then make sure that the moisture content, humidity, and everything in that house is where we want it to be. Of course, the temperatures need to be where we want it to be, and from that day on, it needs to stay pretty much consistent all the way through the time people live there, in order to keep all the materials things. So that's a really big part of what I'm worried about when acclimation and how the house is performing, even if doesn't have people in it, it has to perform still. How does those great big doors and windows and somebody puts a nano wall in, and you've got a 30-foot opening in there, and then we put a screened in porch back there, and everybody's like, we're going to open this whole thing up and we're going to have a party, and does that come into your load calculation?
No,
really,
it can't.
Yeah.
So when we run that calculation, and they've got a 16-foot slider that they're planning on keeping open for the 4th of July, that cannot go into our calculation at all, or we would be grossly oversized.
Yeah. So
when we run our calculations, it's for the occupancy too in that house, right? So if the occupancy, 99% of the time is 5 people, we can't run it for 50 people.
Yeah.
That's something the customer's going to have to live with if they want to have the party.
Well, I mean, you can have a system that is over-calculated, right? I mean, like you could have too much. Like that's what you're talking about. I mean, if you have 50 people in there all the time, that's what you calculate it for. Well, then the house isn't going to perform.
Well, there are systems that you can do that with, though. But when you oversize it, you also have to oversize the ductwork. So you're giving up, more ceiling height in the basement, wider soffits in the basement. All that has to go into it. But on the 75 stage equipment, remember that if you had a 4-ton system, it starts at 25% capacity. So if you only need to run at 1 ton, that's all you're running at.
Okay.
And it raises in 1% increments. So that is really, truly the only system you can somewhat oversize for, homeowners that want to entertain a lot.
I can imagine. I've always been concerned about that because not just because of the heating and air conditioning system, but because we're worried about the humidity and the levels on the inside of the house. So they open them all up, and if it's a hot day and a super hot day and everything starts drying out, then the floors start moving, and then they start calling if it's going to be a problem, and of course if it's raining outside, if it's snow, whatever,
a lot of humidity,
a lot of humidity going on. So I just you can't control how people are going to operate their house. It's the same thing. I think when people think they're going to put a geothermal system in, they're going to have 0 utility bills.
Yeah. And so I just had a conversation this morning with a customer. Another dealer had put in his geothermal, and he was telling me the story about 2017, where I guess we had a couple weeks of 0-degree weather.
Oh, yeah.
So with geothermals, they're fantastic. They're not always fantastic in Region 5 of Ohio, depending on how our weather is. But once they have extracted heat out of the ground day after day after day, until you reabsorb heat in that ground, it's going to run on the emergency backup heat, whether it's a propane source or it's resistance electric heat. And that's where you're going to see bills change drastically. So, and these heat pumps now have become just as efficient as geothermal.
I've heard that. I've heard that from several people.
Unbelievable.
And it's a lot less expensive.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm for whatever people want.
Yeah.
But on this geothermal system, and I sound like a moron, but until recently, I just figured geothermal was geothermal, but there's a geothermal and it has to have a backup system to it, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
So the backup system, in order for it to be a true geothermal, the backup system has to be electric. Is that right? It can't be gas, or
it can be gas.
Okay.
It would still be a dual fuel, like having a heat pump outside and a propane furnace inside, or even natural gas dual fuel. A lot of people do that. You can do geothermal that way. The difference is when the gas heat kicks on, the heat pump or the geothermal cannot be supplementing the gas heat.
Okay.
So because your evaporator coil gets way too hot with that gas heat across it, and it changes the temperature your refrigerant running through.
Okay. So in order for it to be consistent with the geo, it has to be a heat pump system.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Which then changes, and you can't have a 400 amp service anymore. You probably have to, or 300 or 400. You probably got to really watch that load calculation on your electric, because it's pulling it down, right?
Well, it does. And it depends on everything you're running. Generally, you're not running with the emergency backup heat at the same time that the dryer's running and the electric range is running. Not everything is, that's more of your electrician to answer that question. Right. But, generally you will see at minimum at least 300 amp service when somebody either goes with a heat pump, but when you do dual fuel, that doesn't change your electric at all. A geothermal the same way. That if you had a geothermal dual fuel, you're still only pulling the same amount of electric as you would be with an air conditioner and furnace, because you still need that 208, 230 for the outdoor unit, the geothermal, and it would still be the 115 for your gas furnace. So your electric wouldn't change at all. Now, when you're fully electric, that's an electric air handler with backup heat strips. That's where it drastically changes.
Yeah, that's a big difference. So I can only hope that there's certain people listening to this podcast at this point, so they can understand what that means.
Yeah,
pulling that system.
Yeah.
So what's the perfect system? I mean, right now, if you had natural gas, and you were able to hook up to it.
Yep.
What's the perfect system? Is it geo? Is it natural? Is it dual fuel? Is it electric heat pump? You tell me, like, if you're going to build a house today and you're saying, this is what if I knew everybody in this world could dissect what I'm doing, this is what I'm going to put in my house, what would it be?
Me personally?
Absolutely.
I would put in exactly what I have in my house. I have natural gas. I would put that air conditioner, variable capacity, along with that modulating furnace. That's my personal house. But overall, is the question with natural gas, I would definitely go with the natural gas furnace and an air conditioner.
Yeah.
Yep.
But dual fuel, or just straight across?
I would go straight across.
Okay.
AC and gas.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then they have the percentage of efficiencies on these units. So I remember back in the day, it was a big deal to go from an 80% to a 92, wasn't it? Or
yeah.
a 90.
Yeah.
80 to a 90.
Yeah.
And the big thing there was we got away from having to connect that B vent from the basement all the way up through the roof.
Through the roof.
So that we could just direct vent it out to the back. But I'm sure it's more than that. So now it's like our standard is 96 or somewhere in there, and I mean, so is there 100% efficiency? What's the average? What's the minimum? What are we talking about as far as when you say efficiency calculation on the percentage? What are we calculating?
So think of it like this: an 80% furnace would basically mean 80 cents on every dollar is going into heating that home. 96% means 96 cents on every dollar is going into heating that home. So you would have a 16 cent, savings per dollar in that efficiency. There's not a lot of savings going from single stage equipment to 2-stage equipment. But the comfort is there because you run those longer cycles. The only reason I say is like the most efficient furnace on the market's 99% efficient. You're saving 3 cents on every dollar from that 96 and that 99 but that 99 is costing you thousands of dollars more. Never going to pay for itself in efficiency, but the comfort is phenomenal.
And that's a good question. You're probably never going to get your cabinets and your countertops to pay you back.
No.
It's comfortable. It's used. It's what you love. It's what you like. When you talk about heating and air conditioning, a lot of people will look at it and say, how much money is this going to save me over time? They're looking at for the dollar efficiency on it. So when they put it in a geothermal system, everybody wants to save the earth until they find out how much it costs. And then they're like, I'm not really that concerned with my kids. But it's so you think about that long-term payback is a 35, $40-something thousand geothermal system. How long does it take you to make that back? Is it 30 years? Is it?
So when you calculate that, you got to calculate the cost of that system compared to the standard system. Right. So there's still a cost there.
Yeah.
So then you take that cost in between and then you do an energy audit on it. 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
So you're at the end of life of that geothermal, and you have to replace it anyway, and you're breaking even.
Yeah. That's a good point. And we're not trying to bash anything. No systems. We're not trying to bash any of that stuff. It's just a matter of fact. Is what we're talking about. So the other thing I think about a lot of times is steel ductwork. One thing that you have common with all three of the mechanics between heating and air conditioning and plumbing and electric is resistance, and it's natural flow or easy flow. And the easier flow it is, the better it operates for all of those things. But heating and air conditioning is super important. So you cannot have every time you have a 90-degree turn or a turn in general, every time you do those things, it reduces the flow of the system, so to speak. And so when you are looking at this, and the other thing that comes into play when I'm thinking about this is the ductwork in the basement. And I think about the steel ductwork in the basement. And when you talk about load calculations, you're talking about how deep it is and how wide it is, and as it flows down. But what about the gauge of the steel? Does that matter in the efficiency of the system, or does that just matter in, is it going to flex and is it going to pop when the system turns on?
So there's a big difference between commercial and residential ductwork. Most of your residential ductwork is going to come at the same gauge, whether it is your run out pipes running to every register or it's your main trunk line running through the basement. They're going to be 30 gauge steel. When you get into more commercial application, 24 to 26 gauge. So, but it's carrying more air volume.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is stay away from what we call oil canning, right?
Oh, yeah.
When you have a lot of air volume running through there, depending on the gauge, you could have the popping.
Yeah. So is there companies out there who will use a lesser gauge steel? Or does it have to be 30? Is there a code somewhere that says it has to be 30?
No, there's no code. But everything you're going to find at all your distributors that, every dealer's buying is going to be that 30 gauge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we talk about flex duct and flex duct.
Let me lean back on that just a little bit.
Yeah.
So depending on, we have a riser, we'll say, going to the second floor. Once you get above 12-inch round galvanized steel up to 14, 16, 18, things like that, it does drop down to 26 and 28 gauge.
Okay.
So it's more rigid. So it doesn't have that popping sound.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about is when you fill this duct up with air, when that system first kicks on and that thing's running down through there, it's like a kid running across the floor.
Yeah.
It could be pounding on the bottom of that and it's going to make it like a balloon. It's going to expand and it's going to go boom like that, or it's going to, do some kind of flex noise, and it's super annoying. And then you realize that you're going to hate your builder at that point, and because every time you turn it on, it's going to make a stupid noise. Flex duct work is something that is necessary, but it's also something you have to be super careful with, right? And because you can't crimp it, you can't make it just because it can doesn't mean you should turn it 30 different directions to make it work.
Absolutely.
So tell me about the ups and downs of using flex duct work.
Well, flex duct work's great in attics because it's insulated, so it retains the heating and cooling longer because of the insulation. it's a lot easier to get from point A and point B in an attic and unconditioned space. But what you have to be aware of is how you are installing that. As straight as you can, as tight as you can, you want to pull that, because in the interior liner of flexible duct is just like a slinky, just like we played with kids. So think of that slinky and you turning it in your hand. It doesn't have the same volume, the same circumference to get that air through it. And the same thing as ductwork in your basement. The more turns you have, the higher your static pressure is going to be.
Yeah. Does it do you any good to insulate the square duct, the steel duct that's in the basement? I mean, it's for the supply line?
No.
Because that's a lead qualification thing that we do down in the city, and they make us do that.
Yeah, I know they do. My entire house is, ductwork running through it. And if ductwork is sized properly and you have the proper equipment in there, you will not have condensation problems with that ductwork.
Yeah.
As long as it's in the conditioned space of the home. So,
and I'm enjoying this because I think it's like the coolest stuff ever, and I get excited about it, and nobody else cares about it. So when we talk, you were talking early on about zoning a system, and so we're jumping from around a little bit, but zoning the system, which means that to me, I can make my master bedroom operate like it's on one system.
Yeah.
I can make my great room operate like it's on one system. How does all that work, and why is it so expensive?
So on the expense side, it's because you have, for each individual zone, say you have 3 zones, now you have 3 times the ductwork, because starting from the furnace, each trunk line has to be separated, has to be its own individual ductwork running to that. And in each one of those trunk lines, you have an electronic zone damper. So if you had 3 zones, now you have 3 electronic zone dampers. You now have 3 thermostats. So everything is times the amount of zones you have.
Yeah.
So it really can get expensive.
And I think of our customers all the time. I'm like, anytime you put just in front of something, that's going to be more expensive than what you thought. So it's just zoning, but they don't realize all of those dampers and all of the things it takes. But it doesn't realize the amount of skill and care that you have to have calculating that stuff and thinking through that to make it work. Because, you cannot just come in, specifically our houses. Something that's changed over the years is the walls in the house. We try and build a house if we could just build a pole barn, a clear span pole barn, we would, and people would dress it up because they don't want any walls in there, which then creates problems for us getting mechanical ductwork and returns and getting plumbing and electric and all those things in there. So it's not just about the zoning areas, but it's how are you going to make that equipment work to get to those areas. And then also, by the way, I don't want any drops in my basement, so we're gonna figure out how to get it up in a ductwork, or we're gonna make a taller basement and then drop everything to get it over there. So that zoning is a big deal. So I like to make sure that we always are, if we have a second floor, we're always putting a furnace on the second floor, and then if we have a ranch, we're usually putting 2 furnaces in the basement and one's for the first floor or the basement. But you also do a left and a right, a second floor, at what, and I'm sure it's in your calculations, but at what point does your skill level look at it and go, man, you know what? We need 3 furnaces. We need to do this left and right, and we need to do a second floor. How do you determine all those things?
Well, my determination on that really starts with the homeowner. Us being able to speak with the homeowner. Here's one thing I love. So in my house, I have a basement furnace separated from my first floor, because when my kids are down there with friends, it may be early spring and it's 62, 64 degrees in my basement. They are able to heat my basement at the same time I'm cooling the first floor. So again, it's not about efficiency. My design and my mind works around comfort.
Right.
So that's why my house is the way it is. Our calculations tell us everything. If we have the proper details from you, the architect, the homeowners, that all goes into our calculations. And yes, the nerd in us has to think outside of the box on, how many systems we need to keep this side of the house, this wing of the home comfortable, that second floor system, the basement system, the first floor. And sometimes it's a left and right on the first floor.
Yeah.
That all depends on it goes back to the beginning of our conversation on those manual J calculations, the orientation of the house, how much glass we have in the house. I know we didn't talk about it, but this all goes into our formulation as well. The U value of the glass, the solar gain heat value of the glass. We are truly supposed to put the color of the shingles in our software. Because darker shingles have more of a heat than our lighter shingles in that attic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a big point too, is that, and we talked about this with our energy reader a couple weeks ago, is the temperature in the attic, the temperature in the airspace between the brick and the frame wall, and then the amount of ventilation going from our soffits to our roof vents, and making sure that that's properly sized, that you're balanced with the intake and the outtake on that, and all of those things have a big play in what you're doing. And thinking about, that second floor system, a half an inch plus, your 18 inches of insulation that's above there, that's all that separates you from 140 degrees and 70 degrees. And that's a big difference.
You are still going to have, and that all goes into our calculations, some of that radiant heat still getting through that drywall ceiling on the second floor.
Yeah. And we talked about some different things that we want to do on our end, which is, making sure that a wall cavity has sheeting on all 6 sides of it, the face and the back, and then the top and the bottom of it, and which would help the system operate more efficiently. And those aren't things that you can look at and say, this is going to help us. I mean, you're still calculating for what you have going on. So that's things that people, and the other thing I think about in Ohio, and I'm sure it's this way in so many different places in the United States, but our temperature changes from 6 o'clock in the morning to noon, sometimes by 50 degrees.
I was going to say 40 to 50 degree swings from when we get up to when we go to bed.
That's wicked.
Yeah,
and
it's nuts.
That's a huge change. And then people just look at us and like, well, you're the professional. You should figure this out. And I'm like, I'm just some dumb hillbilly, man. I can't figure this out. I got to have experts like you guys to be able to figure that stuff out.
That's why you hire us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that if you're calculating something, you're doing something, there's a reason why you've done it. Jeff was in here the other day, Jeff Francis that works for you, and we're looking at this, we're going, hey, how about this? What about this? We're talking through it, and I always tell him, hey, when I'm asking questions, because I want to know the answer, because I don't know. I'm not asking questions to think I'm like, well, I'm
trying to catch
you or something. And he said, hey, I did it this way. So, thinking about framing that, this is a heating and air conditioning guy. And he says, hey, I'm thinking about framing that space in that hallway, having to do the drop ceiling going all the way down. I stopped it short so it would open it up more here. And I'm like, holy cow, that's really, that's excellent thinking. But it was also because we did this pre-con meeting with them, it gave us all an opportunity to sit around and talk and learn and talk and learn and talk and learn about each other. And I think that was really important.
Yeah. Think of, this is in our shop. Think of, a bunch of doctors in the hospital, and they're trying to figure out a case, why somebody's sick, and, they all get together. And, well, in our shop, houses like yours, we will look at that, and just in our estimating department, there are 7 engineers. And they're all in this, this big bullpen. They have cubicles, but they're big cubicles. They will get together, big conference table, have your prints laid out, and Jeff will come up with those questions. And there's 6 other engineers, and sometimes they pull me in or, other people that have been through the engineering department. And we will look at this, and, when the majority of us are on the same page, we know we've come up with the right
That's so
way
awesome.
to,
That's
it
so
helps
important.
tremendously.
I think we try and do that here too, where we have peer reviews on the job. So other guys, we're all going out, we're doing inspections on the job. Other guys, we're sitting in production meetings and we're opening it up to have conversations to say, hey, I'm running into this. What would you guys do, or whatever the case is. That if you're here thinking that you're going to operate alone, that you have to prove something to somebody, whatever you're doing, that's not the way this industry has to work, especially in a company like this or like yours. You need more brains to make the whole thing. I mean, there's always somebody that comes up with something, and you're like, oh man, that's it.
Yeah.
So a couple more questions. One is around the furnace or the equipment manufacturers. Is it true that there's really only like two manufacturers that make all the furnaces? No, absolutely not. Okay.
No. I think
three?
that maybe no. So, I mean, there's a handful of large manufacturers that make a bunch of brands, right? So you have Carrier, Bryant, Tempstar, Comfort Maker, Payne. That's all on the Carrier side. Lennox has, 5 or 6 themselves. Trent has 5 or 6 different brands. And I wouldn't even call them knockoff brands. They're more economical. They may be a little louder, because they don't have the same insulation around the interior of the furnace or around the compressor. So the more you pay, the more bells and whistles you get.
Yeah.
There's a handful of main manufacturers that have other brands.
What determines you to look at it and say, this is my brand? Is it the supply house you're buying off of? Is it your true belief? Is it, do you have a representative from Bryant or Lennox or somebody that's talking to you?
There's a multitude of things. Number one is having customer support. So the manufacturer we're buying off of, we want to be able to get a hold of them, not be put on hold, wait for a call back 2 days later. It is who gives us the support we need. And then the second most important thing would be our service technicians. The furnaces may have all the same components: igniters, inducer motors, blower motors, heat exchangers, things like that. But for us to get in and do the maintenance and service, it has to be friendly inside of the furnace and not compact, right?
Yeah.
So there's certain manufacturers, and I'm not going to mention any names, like for a service technician to go out and do maintenance and take out the flame sensor, which is a simple thing, or should be a simple thing, and clean it with a piece of emery cloth, it takes about an hour and a half longer, because you have to take out part of the heat exchanger, or the plate on the heat exchanger. You have to take out the gas valve, the burners, just to get to that flame sensor.
Man.
And that is ridiculous to me. There's all kinds of different things with different manufacturers that I would have complaints about on maintenance or service. But overall, Bryant is generally the one that it's either Bryant or Lennox are the two that I like, because they're more friendly with maintenance.
Yeah. That's huge. I think about that in equipment, in our farming equipment. I just was talking to somebody about this the other day, because there's a couple different manufacturers of farming equipment. Every once in a while, you'll see a piece of equipment on Facebook Marketplace, and you're like, man, that's cheap. And I'll talk to my neighbor, and my neighbor's like, well, the reason it's cheap is because you can't buy parts for it anymore. I'm like, oh man, didn't think about that part. Because I'm probably going to break it. I didn't say it was. I was getting ready to say it's probably going to break. I'm probably going to break it. But that's a huge part of it. I always considered it like, hey, this is the person, they're a Carrier dealer because, they went through the classes and that's their supply house. But all of those reasons that you're giving are so justified that it's so important for that. Another two other questions I have for you. One is talk about air filtration and the filters that you're using in your furnace. I've heard two different rumors, or two different methods, I guess I could say, theories. The thicker cloth filters would run down your system and make it more difficult for it to run. run, but it would block all the stuff coming through there. And the ones that are like those blue ones that are made out of horsehair or something like that are like 16 cents a piece would be good because it doesn't bog the system down. What's the best filtration method?
Yeah. Well, so let's go on that. We call that hog hair, the blue ones that, you get 99.9% of the air goes through it.
Yeah.
But it also doesn't catch any of the, the dirt, the debris so all that goes to your evaporator coil then. And then you go into cooling season and you have all this dirt, this dust, everything else. That entire evaporator coil turns into like drywall mud because it's condensating on all that dirt that's passed through. So yes, you have great airflow until that coil gets dirty and you have to tear the entire system down to clean all that off. And then, so the Aprilaire media filters that we use in yours, they're thicker. They're about 4 inches thick. So you've got all that room for air to pass through. It's not just 20 by 25, the width and the height. You also have 4 inches of depth. So you get way more air volume through there. But you use variable speed 2-stage furnaces on every house. So with that variable speed, it detects that static, that higher static pressure of that thicker filter. That's, better for indoor air quality, and it ramps up the blower motor to overcome that.
Yeah. One of the things when I first met you, you said, hey, some builders want us to just figure into the initial bid to provide a bunch of extra filters. And we're like, yes, we need that.
Absolutely.
And you've never seen a system get more screwed up than if we don't go down there every single day and check that filter and changing the filters during construction.
Yes.
Because that's when it's getting beat up the worst. And making sure we're constantly changing those things out. It's so important.
It is huge.
I wish, another question I was thinking about was people were always coming up to me with these Nest thermostats and all these different things. And I guess they like it because they can do it from their phone, which I think is a horrible idea. But what's the best thermostat out there? I don't think you should be in San Francisco messing with your thermostat in Ohio because you got to be there and make sure it's operating right. So, you should set your thermostat and don't touch it again because that will screw it up.
I am a huge believer in set it and forget it.
Yeah.
Set it on one. This equipment is so efficient nowadays that all you're doing is sacrificing comfort when, you change it from 72 degrees in cooling when you go to work and it goes up to 82 and you want it to get back down to temperature, right? You have built up humidity, not just there, it's in the walls, it's in the furniture, it's in the flooring, and you have to overcome all that moisture and humidity for the temperature to start dropping. Here's why I like the Wi-Fi thermostats, though. Even though I set it and forget it and don't use, any kind of schedule or anything else, if I'm in Chicago or New York or anywhere else and nobody's at my house and it's 0 degrees outside, I can get on that app and see that I have it set at 68 degrees, but it's 61 degrees in my house.
Yeah.
I know there's a problem with the heating.
You're right.
And I need to get somebody over there.
100%. That's so important. And we're doing more things like that where people can leave their house comfortably.
Yeah.
Where we're putting leak detection devices from mowing on our main water supply. We can have alarms on the septic system that can be Wi-Fi modulated. And the same thing with your thermostat. That's so important. I didn't consider that. So the other thing is, and I think that this is like just probably an old person thing that I've come across is that in growing up you would never buy an extended warranty and you would never sign a maintenance contract. And for me today, I always buy the extended warranty because if it's a 3-year warranty on the first day of the 4th year, my stuff will break. So get the extended warranty. But how important is it to have a maintenance contract for your heating and air conditioning system, to have a professional at least once a year, right? Come out and just spend whatever money it is to check it out.
It's huge. And here's the biggest deal. When your equipment is clean, and there's only one way, there's a lot of companies out there, a lot of HVAC dealers that have 5 different tiers of maintenance. There's only one way to do maintenance. one way.
Yeah.
And that's to do it right? Taking that outdoor unit apart, cleaning those coils out, a foam in there that pushes all the dirt through those fins inside of your outdoor condenser unit, the evaporator coil inside on the furnace, taking that door off, cleaning it with a solution to get all the dirt and debris out of there, doing a combustion analysis on the furnace. We have a tool that tests the efficiency of the furnace every year, because if you have a 97% furnace and we come in there and test it at 94%, we know there's a problem, but you don't know that if you're not doing maintenance every year.
Yeah.
So we know there's either a block in the burners, a block in the heat exchanger, a compromised heat exchanger. There is a lot that we can tell by doing that maintenance. But the number one reason to do maintenance is that cost if you're doing the maintenance properly, that cost that you're paying in the maintenance, you're saving more than that on your bills because your equipment's performing properly.
Right. I think the risk is like my business. You know, I mean, there's horrible crooked builders out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's horrible crooked car salesmen out there, and there's horrible crooked maintenance people out there for plumbing, for heating and air conditioning, and there's people who would swear that this heating and air conditioning company comes out and they break stuff on purpose while they're there. So then they go, oh, we're going to have to fix this, and then that gives people a bad rap, you know. But I really think that people should consider getting somebody they trust. Like you guys, and to be able to do it, and to do it with our customers, and we encourage them at the closing and say, hey, this is something that's really important.
Yeah. So here's one thing to think about. So when we install equipment in your house, all that equipment comes with a 10-year parts warranty. But the manufacturer wants to see that homeowner has paid for that maintenance every year.
Yeah.
They ask for the paper trail, especially when it's a large component. They will ask that you provide that paperwork of having the maintenance done every year since it was installed. So that's one thing. We generally don't try to, force that on customers, even though the manufacturers ask us, have they been doing maintenance? But it is extremely important. I have the company's coming out to my house next week to do the maintenance on my air conditioner.
Who do you use?
Can't say it here.
That's funny. Hey, I you know what? I've truly enjoyed this conversation because I know enough to be dangerous, but the details that you know are so important. And I talk about it with our customers. Alicia and I talk about it in the beginning when we're selling people on our process and the things that we do and the people that we use. And I always talk about, hey, you can use, I can sit here and say, we use pellet windows and we use this kind of plywood and, we use this kind of furnace, but it doesn't matter. Whatever we're using, if the people installing it don't care, and if they are, and then they're not particular, and they're not geeked out on it, nerded out on everything because they're so excited about it. Yeah. If you don't have that, and they're just going out and kind of doing a job, man, you ain't going to get nothing that you want out of that whole deal. So that's why we enjoy working with you guys. And when the first time I met you, you were like just so fired up about it.
I love it.
Super excited about it. And I'm like, this is it. This is what we want. So thank you. Thanks for being that way. I think our customers would probably say thank you for being that way. And thanks for all the different details that you do. There's so much. We could probably go on for another couple hours.
Yeah.
And jump into this.
I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I am too. So what else? Is there anything we missed? Anything else you want to talk about?
No. I just, I think we've covered it all, starting with the blueprints and comfort and, different designs of homes. And there is a lot more to talk about than what we've talked about.
Yep.
Don't know if I'm prepared for it today.
Yeah.
But it's the love of what I do that keeps me excited. Every time I get a print, that's the exciting thing too, is everyone is different on a custom home. You can have production homes where you're doing the same house over and over and over. The orientation may change, but your duct design is pretty much the same. It is the challenge of getting a home like yours and designing it and us knowing in our heads it's going to work fantastic.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I say this all the time on here, but I refer to Dusty Baker all the time, the manager. He's the manager of the Reds. And you know, I'm gonna meet him one day, and he's gonna be like, "Why do you keep telling everybody I'm 150 years old?" But he's like 150 years old, and he's still in the dugout, and he's still super focused on the game.
He's still coaching.
I don't know if he's still. I'm sure he's still somewhere, but I don't know if he is. I think he might have retired.
Yeah.
At 150, you had to retire, but I mean, he's still in there, and he's still. But you think about that cat. He's probably been playing baseball or doing something with baseball since he was 5 years old, 6 years old,
entire life,
and so he's still got that fire burning for it. And I think the same thing about me. I think the same thing about you. What's driving it? What's keeping the fire going for you? And it's that love for everything that you do. And then when you have that, then that just spawns to carrying and to hustle and to all these different great things that come from it. And that's what we want here at Wheel and Builders. And I think our customers want that as well. So how do we get a hold of A1 Mechanical?
You can call us at 937-865-2523.
And A1Mechanical.com.
Yep.
There you go. That's it. Hey, this is Trent Morris here on the WB Download. Man, I've really enjoyed this stuff. Thank you for being a part of this team, and thanks for doing an awesome job. Right. We're grateful for you taking time out of your day to be here. Yeah. We're grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Man, these last couple of episodes, I'm telling you, have been things that I get excited about. And you know, when we're talking to people, these are the things I think that people walk through Wheel & Builder's door and they just expect us to know. They expect us to do these kind of things. Maybe they don't know, maybe they don't realize it, but these are the focus points of what we do. And when we had Brad on last week, 2 weeks ago, and we had, you know, we talked to our architects, we talked to Trent, and you guys can understand and you can be on a podcast or listening to a podcast and hear the passion in these people's voices, and it's super important to me that know that they have that passion, to know that they're excited about it, that they're digging in, and they're not just there to do a job. You know, it's not low ball, low price, and whatever. It's about making sure it's done right. So, Trent, thank you for taking time out of your day to be here. Thanks for doing a great job, and thanks for being, thanks for being a nerd about heating and air conditioning equipment, because I'm so excited to have this interview going on and just listen to what you had to say, man. Keep on rocking it. I appreciate you. We appreciate you here at Wheel & Builders. Thanks for being on the team. I want to thank the audience once again for listening and tuning in to the WB Download, and I hope you guys are enjoying these guys, because it's getting technical, and it's really important stuff, things that get me giddy, and I hope it does you too. And make sure you tune in for this next episode with the Badass Builders. We are going to have some fun, a lot of laughing, and talk about some good details, and you're going to get a perspective of 4 different builders from 4 different time zones, from 4 different areas of the country, and find out what we all do and what it means, and see different trends in different areas. And I think it's going to be interesting. So make sure you tune in for that one. Don't forget to subscribe to the WB Download on your favorite podcast. Make sure you follow us. Make sure you click everything, and make sure you go to YouTube and check us out over there, and be tuned in and get notifications and updates on what's happening with the WB Download. Don't forget, we drop on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of every month. And if you want to be part of the conversation and you want to know what a hush puppy builder is, make sure you reach out to me. WB Download at wheelandbuilders.com. That's WB Download at WIELANDbuilders.com. And check us out on social media. Watch some of this stuff. Leanne's doing an awesome job of putting these videos out there, and so you can see what we've got happening, and not just at the finish, but during the construction, seeing the meetings that we have here in the office where we're training our people on how to build a house correctly. All kinds of cool stuff going on. And so we're fired up about what we have happening right now. So thanks again, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the WB Download. I'm Jeff Whelan.